Hey everybody, so I hope y'all's semester finished up well. I am certainly glad to be near the end. I did my paper on Pascal. I really enjoyed reading Pascal this semester out of all the other philosophers, I think, because his thought was just so full of conviction and heart, and so I was able to relate to it on a deeper level. And I think a lot of you would agree with me in that, since I think a lot of you posted about how his ideas were the greatest on the last forum, so that was cool to read. But basically, I took his argument about the wager, Pascal's wager, and I argued a position from that. So what Pascal says is that there are two possibilities at the end of our lives. Either God exists, we'll come to find out, or he does not. And then there's two options for us as human beings living on the earth. We choose to either believe in him, or we choose to not believe in him. And then he gave the implications for each of these. So I'm just going to read them off. So if I believe in God and he does exist, then I will gain everything and lose nothing. If I don't believe in God and he does exist, then I will gain nothing but lose everything. If I don't believe in God and he doesn't exist, then I will gain nothing, lose nothing. And if I do believe in God and he doesn't exist, then I will gain nothing, lose nothing. So it's kind of hard to keep straight, but Pascal argued that we should wager for the existence of God since the payoff is greater. So my thesis was basically, it has become evident that Pascal's wager is beneficial and is not to be rejected. So I was arguing for the plausibility of it. So how I did this is I provided three common objectives to Pascal's wager. I pulled each objective from different worldviews to argue for Pascal's wager from different angles. So first I argued against the objective to Pascal's wager inside of Christianity, and then I argued to the objective outside of Christianity. This can include atheism or Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism. And then finally I argued for the objective to the wager from an agnostic's point of view, from like a sort of neutral circle. And so I'm just going to go through these objectives and present each one and how I replied to them. So my first objective inside of Christianity was that Pascal's wager leads one to false faith because it is founded upon the fear of hell rather than the love of God. And so basically my reply to that was faith is faith no matter what it means, no matter what means that it comes through. Matthew 17:20, Jesus teaches that even the faith of a mustard seed has the power to move mountains. So I argued in my paper that Jesus does not talk about the kind of faith we need to have, big or wide, that is required. He only says that faith needs to be present. So I also feel like this objective is making light of the saving power of the gospel, as it bases our salvation on our faith, which is just a fail waiting to happen since we're so fickle as human beings, obviously. So that's kind of the direction I took with that objective. So moving on to the second objective, outside of Christianity comes in something called the many gods problem. So this objective is basically saying Pascal's wager is not beneficial because it assumes that the Christian God is the God in its argument. And so the objective states that all gods should be equiprobable because there are possibly many gods in logical space with many possible natures. And Pascal raises his God above the others, which is unfair. So the objective states that either Pascal's Christian God must take his place equiprobably alongside the indefinitely many other possible deities, or Pascal's argument could be reiterated for every other God who offers infinite payoffs. So my reply to that in my paper was we actually do have more information and evidence on some gods than others historically, so why not go for the God that we have the most information on? And if one God has a better nature, why wouldn't we take to that God? It's only logical. And why would we completely refuse ourselves of believing in a God just for fear of elevating one over the other? This objective was probably the toughest for me to get through in my paper, but that's the general direction I took with it. And then moving on to my last objective from the agnostic's point of view, one who says there isn't not a God, but there isn't for sure a God either. So kind of just a neutral party. But this objective states that Pascal's wager is false because it automatically makes one choose completely either option one, that God exists, or God does not exist. So the agnostic obviously does not like that because he actually has to make a choice. And so that's why he says that Pascal's wager is wrong, because it automatically takes the freedom away from agnostics to just like not make a choice at all. It makes them uncomfortable. And so my reply to this one, I started out with the Peter Kreeft quote from the actual book that we read. Peter Kreeft edited it, so that was really helpful in my paper. But I took a quote from him, and it says, "Suppose Romeo proposed to Juliet, and she says neither yes nor no, but wait. Suppose the wait lasts and lasts until she dies. Then her wait becomes a no. Death turns agnosticism into atheism." So my reply back to this objective was basically that agnosticism is a choice, and so the wager has room to account for agnosticism too. It only detects it as atheism. So making a choice not making a choice is as good as saying that God doesn't exist at all. So that's the choice that agnostics would make, is what Pascal would say, and I would back him up on that. So for the implications on Western society that I believe, and I've seen that Pascal's wager has brought on, is that for a negative implication, it has caused many atheists and agnostics to become angry and start asking questions that some Christians don't have the answers to. It has created tension because neither side is able to completely prove their option that God exists or God does not exist, the option that they chose. And so the fights continue on with new emotions, and nobody's able to really completely refute the other side. But a positive implication, I would say, is that it has given the Christian community an argument for the existence of God that is easier to understand than, like, say, the ontological argument or something like that the regular church member would have to probably sit and really think about before they would understand it. So the regular church member has something to understand now that's a little bit easier. And so I think an overall positive implication for the West is that it has caused churches and unchurched people to start thinking more about their relationship with the current beliefs and their eternal destiny, and kind of how that will play out at the end of their life. I really enjoyed doing this paper, but once again, my thesis was it has become evident that Pascal's wager is beneficial and not to be rejected. And so that's basically kind of how I did it. So yeah, thanks for a great class. I really enjoyed it.